Hapo najua leo nafaulu.
And again, just a reminder that after the presidential closing ceremony, please remain behind. We still have some exciting panels that are going to be taking place. Let us kindly we may take our seats, please. Your Excellencies, welcome to
Excellence, bienvenue à la cérémonie de clôture du Forum d'affaires. Nous avons eu plusieurs discussions qui continueront. Donc, Son Excellence William Ruto, le président de la République du Kenya, et Son Excellence Emmanuel Macron, président de la République française. Donc, bienvenue à cette session de clôture du Forum d'affaires. Nous allons procéder directement au discours. Donc, nous allons donner la parole à son Excellence William Ruto. Un applaudissement, s'il vous plaît. Merci.
Excellency.
Thank you. Okay. Your Excellency, my good brother.
Excellence, mon cher frère, président,
Chair of the Africa Forward Summit 2026. Excellencies, heads of state and government, honorable ministers, captains of industry, distinguished delegates, business people, entrepreneurs, innovators, ladies and gentlemen, we gather here in Nairobi at a very defining moment for this continent of ours and for the future of global partnership. On behalf of the government and people of Kenya, I warmly welcome all of you to this city of Nairobi. Welcome. This city builds very strong foundations established by what was successfully done by Inspire and Connect Business Forum that was the precursor for this meeting we are having here today. Throughout today, engagements here, I am told, have been witnessed we've witnessed more productive business engagements and deliberations. We have witnessed connections. We have witnessed exchange. We have witnessed the power of culture, sports, enterprise, and people-to-people engagement coming together to reflect the growing dynamism of Africa-France cooperation. These interactions have reaffirmed our shared commitment to deepen economic collaboration, expand trade and investment, strengthen cultural ties, and advance a partnership grounded in mutual respect, shared prosperity, and common ambition. This forum has renewed the spirit of engagement between Africa and France and strengthened the foundation upon which a new era of strategic cooperation can now be effectively built. As business leaders, investors, innovators, and policymakers from Africa, France, and beyond gather here today, the depth of today's conversation and the quality of engagement have demonstrated one thing very, very clearly. The opportunities for collaboration between Africa and France are immense, diverse, and transformational. Africa continues to consolidate its position as one of the world's most attractive investment destinations, supported by improving macroeconomic fundamentals and sustained economic growth. In 2025, the continent recorded economic growth of 4.2%, up from 3.5% in 2024. This progress is being driven by stronger macroeconomic stability, expanding domestic demand, infrastructure development, increasing investment flows, demographic strength that we have in our young people, and the continued diversification of Africa's natural and economic resources. Together, these factors are enhancing the continent's competitiveness and reinforcing Africa's emergence as a strategic frontier for global business, industrial expansion, and long-term growth. This morning, my brother, President Macron, and I were in a youth summit right here in this compound. And I remember one young person saying, look, it's no longer looking west or looking east, it's looking forward. And forward is actually looking south. That's what I was told this morning. And I guess that's why we are in this great city of Nairobi, one of the diplomatic hubs in the global south. The success of Africa's continental integration agenda, as envisioned under Africa's continental free trade area, will depend on quality infrastructure, strategic investment, strengthened partnership, and joint ventures, expanding trade, and meaningful technology transfer capable of accelerating intra-Africa commerce and, of course, economic transformation. Regional economic blocs, including the East African Community, COMESA, and SADC, under the tripartite framework, present extraordinary opportunities for investment, industrial expansion, and regional value chain development. Together, these regional frameworks represent a combined market of more than 800 million people across 29 countries and account for 60% of Africa's gross domestic product. This is not only a market of scale, it is a market of momentum. Excellencies, the global economy is undergoing profound realignment. Supply chains are shifting. Capital is repositioning itself. Nations and industries alike are seeking resilience, sustainability, efficiency, and stability. Africa, and indeed Kenya, stands at the center of this transformation. Our strategic location, vibrant private sector, improving a macroeconomic environment, youthful and innovative workforce, and expanding green energy infrastructure continue to strengthen Africa's integration into global value chains and support regional industrialization. Kenya in particular has made significant progress in expanding export processing zones and special economic zones that continue to provide attractive incentives for investors and an enabling environment for business. We have also liberalized our foreign exchange regime, enabling investors to repatriate 100% of their profits while advancing innovative financing that is available for all our investors. Infrastructure fund that we have just established, National Infrastructure Fund. And I was having a conversation with President Macron on how we are going to raise resources in our continent. We have discussed, we will be having a serious meeting tomorrow on matters to do with international financial architecture. While it is okay, and we are having a big conversation on how to make the Bretton Woods institutions more representative, how to enhance the voice of our continent, how to leverage on our shareholding. We also must do something as a region and a continent. And I have asked my good brother to support us as we push for the new Africa financial architecture, which we will be proposing as we go to the G7. We remain a strategic gateway to both regional and continental markets of nearly 1.6 billion people in this continent. We now look ahead to the next phase of this engagement. Our task is clear: to translate the commitments and conversations emerging from this forum into tangible outcomes that deliver measurable impact in trade, investment, infrastructure, innovation, manufacturing, and sustainable development. Our geography, ladies and gentlemen, and our history, our culture, our shared aspirations for inclusive prosperity provide a powerful foundation for deeper and more enduring cooperation under the Africa Forward framework. That partnership has deepened in recent years. And I want to thank my good friend, President Macron, for having the courage to recalibrate the relationship between France and Africa. You know, and I want to tell President Macron that what you have done is the right thing to recalibrate our relationship. You understand very well that this is a continent of tremendous opportunity, resources, and wealth. And what we are doing as leaders in this continent is not to look for aid anymore. It's not to look for loans anymore. We want to have a balanced conversation. We want to have a mutually beneficial conversation. And this conversation is going to be about investment. We have ideas, we have resources, we have assets, we have our human resource, and we are ready to engage in a manner that is beneficial to France and is beneficial to us. We no longer want a relationship that is one-sided. And this is why this France-Africa Summit in Nairobi is different. We are shifting. The reason why it is being held in an Anglophone country is because we want inclusivity. We want those of us who are Anglophone to feel as part of this relationship as those who are Francophone, because we are one continent and we are one people. And we want that relationship to be a relationship of shared responsibility. We too have responsibilities. The same way our partners and friends have responsibilities. So we must appropriate our responsibilities. We must do our part as everybody else does their part. So congratulations, my good friend Macron. We will be going to the G7. And I will be asking my brother, as the leader of the G7 from June this year, to help us position this continent appropriately. We want two very important things. Number one, we want a functioning, representative, fair international financial architecture. One that recognizes our opportunities, one that does not unfairly judge African economies. We want a fair credit rating mechanism that does not disadvantage our economies. And we will prosecute our case and do so efficiently. Number two, we want to make sure that the global financial architecture respects the voice of 1.4 billion people living in this continent. For far too long, we were part of others. We do not want to be part of others. We are a people, we are nations, and I know that President Macron is going to stand with us. I normally tease him, and I normally tell him, when he speaks, he's the only person in the G7 who speaks the language of Africans. And Mr. President, I say this without fear of any contradiction, because I have engaged with you and I know where you stand. So I want to say to all of you, congratulations, ladies and gentlemen in this room. Now listen, the business people. You guys have a lot of money. You know? You guys are stranded with a lot of money, and we are stranded as in government with a lot of projects. We must find the mechanism that leverages on private sector resources, on pension funds, and on money that's available in our insurance companies to drive programs and projects of transformation in our continent. We have huge resources. I want you to listen to me. We have huge resources in our pensions, running into trillions. We have huge resources with our insurance companies, running into trillions, but they fear to invest in public projects because they think it is risky. Now listen to me. We are developing a mechanism together with the Africa Development Bank, Afrexim Bank, Trade and Development Bank, Africa Finance Corporation, RTD, and I remember discussing this with President Macron yesterday, so that we can have a mechanism that will de-risk our public projects and enable you, private sector, pension funds, and insurance companies to invest in public projects. That is how we are going to grow this continent. Continuing to depend on the resources of others and expecting that they will make them available at concessional rates will be a waiting game in vain. So we need to think. That is why in Kenya, we have already established the National Infrastructure Fund. We already have the first $1 billion in the National Infrastructure Fund. And this is a fund that we established 4 months ago. In another few months, maybe a month or two, we will have another $2 billion. And we want to leverage the $3 billion that we are going to put in that fund to raise $30 billion to run our infrastructure programs. That is how transformation is going to be undertaken in this continent. You know, we're not going to be waiting for resources from others. And finally, let me say this. As we work with the private sector, we want the private sector to develop confidence. We now have an opportunity, and I want to talk to the private sector people who are sitting here. I hope my good friend Aliko Dangote is in the room, or right there. We have an infrastructure project for the development of an East African refinery. Dangote tells me that it's going to cost anywhere between $16 billion and $20 billion. That East African facility, East African refinery facility, is an investment that the government of Kenya, the government of Uganda, the government of Tanzania, we have agreed that we want to develop a facility that is going to assist us with our fuel products. We do not want to be held hostage anymore by the Strait of Hormuz. We do not want to be held hostage by wars that are started by other people. We have our own resources here, and we are saying we are going to use our African resources to industrialize our region. And that is why we have asked Aliko Dangote here to do a research. We have the port of Tanga, we have the port of Mombasa, we have the port of Lamu, and the rest in between. Wherever they will find the most suitable location. From our perspective, because the crude pipeline was going to Tanga, we thought that is the best location. But we will not dictate to Aliko Dangote and the investors. But I want to also tell Aliko and all the other guys, you are not going to invest alone. Governments are also going to invest. So that when you make the money, we also make the money. Right? And we are going to invest so that we can de-risk that investment. I am going to use resources from my National Infrastructure Fund to invest in the refinery so that we can share in the profits that come and we can assist our private sector to de-risk the investments they are going to put in these projects and make those projects viable and make them cost effective. Let me give you another opportunity. We are building a new airport in Nairobi. It's going to cost us around $1.5 billion. There is an opportunity for investment. Are there any business people in this room? Or these are tourists? They are right here. Yes, I can see them here. So there is an opportunity for you to invest with us. Government of Kenya is going to put in 20%, bring the rest of the money, let's build the airport, and everybody makes money, right? So this is how we want to take things forward. That is how we are going to build public infrastructure. That is how we are going to use private-public partnership to drive African transformation. And that is what we are going to do going forward. Let me conclude this by saying that we need to mobilize domestic resources. I will give you an example. We have mobilized in the last 3 years $4 billion and built a whole housing ecosystem without borrowing a cent from any bank, not from the World Bank, not from IMF, not from anybody. There is opportunity for us to mobilize domestic resources. And we want to work with the private sector to see how we can do that in a way that benefits everybody. I run the risk of doing a lecture because I'm at the Nairobi University where I spend all my time reading. But let me stop there and say thank you very much and welcome to Nairobi. Great. Now it's my moment to invite my good friend and brother, the President of France, Emmanuel Macron.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear William, Mr. Prime Minister, ministers, please. Ministers, ambassadors, business leaders, I'm extremely happy to be here and thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. President, not just for welcoming us and hosting this very important meeting, a premiere, but co-chairing as well as this Africa Forward Summit. I will switch in French.
Monsieur le Président, Mesdames, Messieurs,
Dear President, ladies and gentlemen, we're very pleased, along with the Kenyan President, to be able to conclude here today. I know that there will be panels following these speeches, and other colleagues will also take the floor and discuss the future, and this will definitely take place. But I would like to say just a few words as relates to my belief in what President Ruto said, but also to enable you to measure collectively what this summit represents. When there is usually a France-Africa summit, that's what it was called Africa-France, not Africa Forward. We would often begin with the heads of state and government, and there was sometimes the involvement of business leaders. Sometimes we had separate business forums, but mainly it was in the hands of leaders. This Africa Forward Summit has placed youth at the heart of it, and we spoke to young people this morning. We spoke about youth, culture, creativity, sport, energy, health, digital tools, agriculture, and all of you have witnessed an unprecedented business forum today, which discusses Inspire, Connect, Africa Forward, and has enabled business leaders to meet, but also to amplify the voice of business leaders right from across the continent, from France and Europe, in an unprecedented fashion. And all of this will continue. And there will be a representation of some of you who will be able to have discussions with heads of state and government who will be present tomorrow. So for this, I would like to first and foremost thank our hosts, our Kenyan hosts. Thank you to the university, all of your teams, Mr. President and the ministry, thank you very much. And the co-organizers from BPI France, Business France, Proparco. Together, you have been able to create this unprecedented moment. So well done to you and thank you. I would also like to thank all of the entrepreneurs who were mobilized, MEDEF, CCE, CCEF, SIA, and Alpha. Thank you for their efforts and their contribution. And this will also enable us to benefit from our day tomorrow. Thank you very much to all of you. Africa Forward, Inspire and Connect. And I should say that is why this room is so full of energy. We were expecting 2,000, 2,500 participants, and there are roughly 7,000 of you. This is unprecedented. I've never seen such a business forum with as many participants. This is a clear mobilization with representation from civil society, entrepreneurship, with experts from all walks of life who have, through the 30 panels, have organized around 4 forums: Build, Trust, Innovate, Connect. Almost 7,000 participants, 700 business meetings that have been organized. That is the result of this unprecedented moment, with results which are changing things. And as you said, Mr. President, and I think this is why we're here together, because we uphold the same vision. The partnership between France and Africa has very sound foundations. Many companies are present here today. Thousands of euros of cultural exchange, 5 million in terms of investment in Africa. In addition to this, we have African investments that are growing in France, 1 million jobs created by French companies on the continent, 5 billion euros transferred in remissions. And this relationship has changed profoundly based on what the President mentioned, and something in which we believe profoundly. Now, there is a perception that has changed, and the President mentioned this. Things are changing. French companies are currently changing, and we must ramp things up. In France, I do not hear enough about this, and this is the case in some French-speaking countries, French African-speaking countries. But our relationships are changing, and thanks, and this is a good thing. For 25 years, France has been present in Africa, and this is very normal, and it's a positive thing. France is present because for too long, too many people, and we need to say this, in large companies have thought that we are French and therefore we have entitlement to everything. We have the arrival of the Chinese, the Turks, the Americans, many others, and other Africans who are saying we're better than you, we're more competitive than you. They've been able to take over some market share. And this has been done by people who are more competitive than us. So Africa is developing in an unprecedented fashion. It's the most dynamic continent in the world. Last year, more growth than Southeast Asia. It's a continent where there are more than 1 billion young people who are below the age of 30 years. And what we've done over the last few years, well, we've woken up as French people and as Europeans. So we have this partnership with BPI France. This demonstrates what we've done over the last few years. We have Digital Africa, our talent passports, everything that we have done to ensure that our youth can move forward more quickly. We wish to reconquer market share in French-speaking Africa, but we also want to do this in other parts of Africa, because Africa is one continent. And this is not due to entitlement, but because we want to be the best. And the President mentioned this. What the African continent is asking for is not for us to come and give aid. They wish for us to invest. They don't want us to tell them what is good and to say, you know, we're good in this field, we're good in this field. That no longer works. So what we need to do is to co-construct with the African continent to say, this is where business can be developed in energy, infrastructure, education, agriculture and health. And collectively, we can co-invest and we can co-produce. Now, this conceptual revolution is the one that we have launched over the last few years. When COVID happened, immediately we committed. I asked President Moustapha at the time. We created an African bureau and we launched a platform to produce in Africa and to begin to produce vaccines. We launched the project here in Rwanda, in South Africa, and African and European companies were able to develop production together, because the African continent is not just about receiving medication produced elsewhere, because the reality is as follows. Africa represents 20% of requirements in terms of vaccination and 1% in terms of vaccine production, and that's what we're trying to change. And similarly, when we launched in Nigeria, along with my fellow business leaders, we launched initiatives in cultural and creative industries, in energy, in the digital field. We did this collectively because Nigerians told us, we know how to do this, but help us to better integrate ECOWAS, because in partnership with companies from French-speaking countries and other countries, it is smart for us to work better with Côte d'Ivoire and Senegal and to strengthen and further regional integration. So this is what we've been doing over the last 10 years. We've woken up, we've changed perspective. It's about respect, it's about mutual partnership, which involves diasporas in France. We have millions of young people who have African origins. We want them to come here. We have French companies who can also be catalysts of growth on the continent. This continent has everything it needs. We just wish to help and to co-invent and to do away with this vertical thinking so that we can work alongside one another and strengthen co-investment. And finally, we wish to build these future solutions together, because the solutions of the future will only be done with the youth of the continent. And the President reminded us of this morning. Mobile payment was involved here. It has been developed much more quickly in Africa than on the European continent. And our Kenyan friends know, just as our Moroccan friends know this. And all of this is what lies at the heart of Africa Forward. It's a change in perspective, And so what I wish to announce here today is that through all of the actions that have been undertaken, we are seeing very concrete results for the African continent. Through your mobilization, through what has been done, 23 billion euros have been announced in investment for the African continent. 23 billion euros. These 23 billion euros represents 14 billion euros from French countries who are present, large groups, small and medium-sized enterprises that have invested 14 billion euros in the continent. And I wish to hail all of the business leaders who are behind this investment in Kenya, but in other African countries who are present here today. And this will create more than 220,000 jobs in Africa, excuse me. And that's 9 billion euros of investment from African entrepreneurs and investors. This is unprecedented, and this is exactly the mobilization that we wish to see and that we wish to ramp up. So, a huge round of applause for all of you present here today for this very extraordinary result. And I would like to thank the French companies who have taken action. We mentioned Orange, we mentioned Canal+, we have the companies that work in the health sector, such as Castel and others, as Sudivica. We have companies present in all sectors. We have family companies, we have SMEs. You have all played the game brilliantly. We have companies from all different regions who are present, but I'm very happy that you are here. Besides business leaders from Madagascar, Senegal, Nigeria, Morocco, I'm happy that we're building projects together because that is what the future is about. And I see this as well in a relationship of reciprocity. Tony was here. I thought for Gilbert, Mike, Professor Abuyo, who was with us this morning, and Aliko as well. We have created this Franco-Nigerian Council, and Nigeria was at the heart of this. And so, when it comes to bilateral relationships, I wish to see more African investors in France. It's not just about France coming to invest in the African continent, but we also wish for African business leaders to come and invest in France. And this will create that reciprocal relationship, free of complexes. Because, again, it's about changing perspective, but it's also a reality. There are investors and entrepreneurs on the African continent who are extremely innovative and ambitious, who help us change France and create jobs in our country. And this is the key of this reciprocal relationship. And this is what William mentioned just a moment ago. So, well done for all of these investments. And I would just like to dovetail off what President Ruto said as it relates to the future. So we have these tens of billions of investment and this change in perspective that we have seen over the last 10 years, but we want to go further than this. So what are the challenges that prevent Africa from succeeding? Well, we know what the challenges are. First, education. What Morocco has done is revolutionary. Prime Minister, what you have done under the authority of His Majesty the King is a model to be followed for the continent, for primary, secondary and university level education with brilliant results. These are the best results that we have seen. So this is an extraordinary model. Kenya is also doing remarkable things. Nigeria is also doing remarkable things, and we've seen this here. And that's why we began today with the President, with an investment from the AFD in engineering, AI, education, education, education. Now, energy. We have this battle. We need for the African continent to transform its energy. There are extraordinary treasures, hydroelectricity, and I'm thinking about the Democratic Republic of the Congo, with major projects that are being undertaken in the DRC and in the Republic of Congo. And I'm thinking about hydrocarbons. Algeria has a huge development potential with investors, entrepreneurs who can make Algeria the El Dorado of the future for transition, not just for the African continent, but for the entire Mediterranean. There is also the will to develop a civil nuclear field as well. So we have energy entrepreneurs present here, and we wish to partner with you as part of this development. The third thing, infrastructure. This was mentioned. Digital infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, energy infrastructure. This is key for developing the economies of your countries, but it's key for the sovereignty of the African continent. We share this challenge. We said this morning with the President that we also wish for our own sovereignty over our infrastructure, just like you. So education, energy, infrastructure, and a structured economy. That's the fourth challenge. One of the major challenges of Africa is that there is a lot of employment, but too much in the informal sector. So we need to ensure that African companies are structured by improving governance, by making it possible for these companies to grow, to pay better salaries, to integrate the banking and financial system, to allow for more people in Africa to have access to sustainable housing, education, health, and good development. The ability to make Africa a more formal economy is the key, and that is where your governments can support you to structure these strategies. And the fifth and final factor is, in order to do this, we need massive investment, both public and private. And this investment strategy is the strategy that we are currently undertaking. So, in some ways, you have done your part with the announcements of today, that 23 billion euros in investment from France in the African continent for Africa. But what we wish to do in the future, and as part of the G7, is to structure a framework of investment for the African continent. There is no reason for there to be so little private investment in a continent which is full of energy and youth, such as yours. So on this continent, if we wish to increase the value chains, if we wish to structure the formal economy, well, we should ensure that we're not simply extracting minerals. We must process them, create an industry. We need to be smarter to structure this, to bring about these opportunities. And for this, we need massive investment. And in order to have massive investment, we need to resolve the issue of ratings. We also need to ensure that we resolve how we deal with risk for non-African investors and also for African investors. 6 years ago, we launched in Paris. 5 years ago, it was the summit for the funding of the African economy. We built a strategy for special drawing rights for Africa, and we succeeded in this gamble. 100 billion were allocated to the African continent, and this was a Franco-African initiative.
And this allowed us with the IMF to develop new projects alongside the states. And there were 10 or so programs, and this was unprecedented. Now, first step. Second step, in Paris in July 2023, William was there, other leaders were there. There was the Paris Pact for People on the Planet. And you say, well, okay, we need more levers. And we were both sitting at the same round table with the World Bank chairman, the Director General of the IMF, and we said, okay, we're going to increase the levers so that when we put more money in from the IMF and the World Bank, it generates the equivalent from the private sector. And so there was much more leverage, and there was a lot more money that came in. So there still is one problem that we haven't managed to overcome, and we have to find a solution to it before tomorrow, between tomorrow and Evian. is that we have no real mechanism that guarantees the initial losses. So we have to find a new treaty that deals with the rating, the national ratings of the different countries, because the World Bank has made eligible guarantees until B-. They guarantee only countries rated B-, otherwise they cannot guarantee them. But we also need to have real mechanisms for covering the initial losses. And now we have quite a few mechanisms that